Hey folks, walk with me. Well, really randomly today, I was thinking if we go in the way back machine, 15, 16, 17 years ago, something like that, I spent 1 year on a raw food diet. And the reasons I did this are sort of convoluted and even to me questionable at this point in time. So we're gonna skip the why. So if you're looking at this video to give you a reason why, I don't have one. But I can tell you about my experience, maybe that will give you a why. But I've often reconsidered or considered once again trying to go back on it or doing some kind of version of it. But this is what it basically looked like for me. I didn't intend to do a year. It just happened to turn out to be about a year. I think it was probably a little closer to 14, 15 months. It was just easy to say a year. So I switched from anything cooked. So any steamed vegetables now had to be raw vegetables. Any grains that you would cook, like rice or barley or farro, just basically you couldn't eat it. Cheese, I skipped cheese altogether, but I guess maybe you could do raw. I don't know. I would have to think about that more. I'm just considering it in this exact moment. But at that point in time, at least, I just decided to forego cheese, which I love, and no meat, because there's not really any meat that I eat raw. Again, I suppose if you do have raw meat that you eat, maybe you could. But the other thing that this sort of cut out, or at least the literature that I'd read at the time had indicated that you need to also cut out oils because they go through some sort of process that is no longer considered raw. And so no oils, no condiments, no breads. So I was literally raw veggies, raw fruits, unroasted nuts, a lot of like beans, leafy greens, and then if I wanted like a dressing or something, I would have like lemon, sort of like squirt some lemon on it. And it was interesting. So what it felt like to me was, obviously it was a huge change. But I remember specifically a few things. One, I lost a lot of weight pretty quickly. I've always been sort of like on the heavier side of things. I've always had more weight to lose than not. And so that happened pretty quickly. And also I had a ton of energy. I remember like I was often sleeping at this point like 4 to 6 hours a night, but I would get up and after that period of time, and I would get up just because I had so much, I was just awake. I just felt energized and I was awake. And I had to cut out coffee, which that would be tremendously hard at this point in time. So no coffee. So just even without the coffee, I just had this like sustained energy. But I did have to eat all the time. I just remember like anywhere I'd go, anything I was doing. Luckily at the time, I was actually a personal trainer in Chicago. And, so if I was sort of like, I know this may sound weird if you're not in it, but as I was training clients, if I was eating something, or if like in between clients I was eating something, like it wasn't super weird. And also, I mean, what is it? It's nuts, apples, stuff like this. So if anything, maybe it's setting a good example for things to eat. But I remember eating all the time. Just basically with raw food, I found it very hard to actually make yourself feel full, which isn't a bad thing, but it's definitely a different thing. I mean, growing up in America, in the US, like, being able to eat a decent amount of food and not feel full, I mean, that's what Americans do best, right? Fill yourself up with food and then keep going. So I remember that was like very different and very interesting of a sensation, but it certainly wasn't like a bad feeling in any way. It was just weird. And there's a difference between feeling like full, over full, and like just incessantly hungry. So I wouldn't say that I was incessantly hungry. It was sort of this like good space of satiation of satiety. One thing that was probably the hardest part of it all, aside from no coffee, but one thing that was hard is it's very hard to have like a social life. At least at that time. I mean, I would have been in my 20s, in Chicago, you know, single or intermittently single, and like, so there's no alcohol on the raw food diet, no coffee, so going out for drinks, going out for coffee, and to that extent, basically going out for any meal, very, very difficult. And so I had almost or truly no social life. And, you know, being older now, I could certainly see opportunities to have a friend who's doing something similar with you, or who you could just go to their house, or have them come to your house, or have a picnic, or, you know, there's certainly ways to do it, but it's not going to be your traditional, again, like the setting that we think of in the US of meet you for coffee, meet you for drinks, you know, let's go out to dinner. It's gonna be very hard. There was something that I remember reading in the PDF that I had downloaded about this that was like basically I don't know if I want to call it a vinaigrette, but I don't even know if that's correct, but it was some sort of dressing that you could use, because the idea was, well, as long as they don't put anything cooked in it, you can certainly go and get a salad at a restaurant and just tell them, like, don't put any dressing on it, and you could bring this dressing and put it on there, and it didn't like disrupt your raw foodiness. But I never even tried it, because, you know, it just seemed like more of an undertaking than I wanted to contemplate at that point. But yeah, I mean, I mostly have like positive recollections about it. The energy thing stands out, the like never feeling full. Like I think of that as like a huge benefit, because again, like me being the way that I am and the culture in which I exist, you know, if I'm going to go to a point where I'm like, I want to feel full, I'm probably going to very much end up in a point where I'm well over full. And the need to constantly eat to just sort of stay not hungry, I actually felt like it was pretty, like a pretty good thing. It sounds out of balance, maybe, but it felt more balanced than this, like, don't eat for a prolonged period of time and then, you know, have something or many things that are like putting you in a spot where you're like, ugh, I ate too much, you know, or even if you don't eat too much, like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. Like, that's not sitting well in my stomach. Like, all of the raw food sat well in the stomach, you know, everything was good on that front, gave me really good energy, definitely noticeable reduction in seemingly necessary sleep hours. again, that's gonna be highly personalized for sure, and even then, like, depending on your circumstances, right? Do you get woken up at night for reasons for children or pets, you know, or whatever? So that's gonna vary, but that was my experience. So I guess if I had 2 cents to throw in here, again, this was 15 to 20 years ago, not 20, but 15, 16, 17 years ago. So I'm sure there's some good literature about this out there now. Find yourself something that resonates, have a plan, know when you're going to kind of kick it off, and, you know, see how it goes. But yeah, I doubt that I will get to it, but there's many ways in which I would like to get to it again. All right, folks, I will see you in the next video.